So again, you don't have to have this laying out on the floor. I just do because it happens to be a bigger quilt and it's easy for me to crawl around. You don't like crawling around, put it up on the table, put it on your cutting table, whatever is easiest for you. But we're gonna take our binding, and generally, I would have all of this wound up around something, whether it's an old spool, I don't know, whatever you want. Otherwise, you're gonna be dragging this whole binding thing around with you as you go. But what we're gonna do, so this is the binding. Wrong sides are folded in together. This is my raw edge, this is my folded edge. I'm gonna take that raw edge and I'm gonna line it up with the raw edge of my quilt. And I wanna leave a good tail here. I'm starting in the middle of my quilt side. Here we go again. I'm gonna say this is probably, I don't know what, 6, 8 inches that I'm leaving as a tail. So I'm going to start pinning here, and this is where I'm gonna also start sewing the binding onto the quilt. And I'm gonna pin, and yes, please pin this on. You can probably do this without pinning it, but trust me, it's just gonna go on so much nicer and easier if you pre-pin it and then walk yourself over to the sewing machine. But I'm gonna pin, and I'm gonna get all the way down to the corner. You don't have to watch me pin the whole thing, but I'm gonna pin all the way down to this corner. And when I get down to this corner, I'm going to pick up the quilt, the binding, everything, and I'm gonna go over to my machine. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start at this pin right here. Remember, leave your tail. And I'm going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm gonna go all the way down. And again, you're going to probably find that it's easiest to sew this on with a walking foot just because you have so much bulk. But you don't, it's not necessary. I just find that it's easier, so you can kind of play around and see what works best for you. But just make sure that it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And when you get down to this corner, you're going to stop and pull it off. Actually, what I want you to do is stop 1/4 inch before you get to the corner. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take my little ruler, I will, hold on a second, I'll show you what I'm gonna do here. Obviously, you don't have to use this big of a ruler, but it was within reach for me. But what I can do as I get done pinning, I'm gonna take this ruler, I've got it sitting at a 1/4 inch, and I'll put a pin. There's a 1/4 inch from the end, and I'll put a pin right there. And that way I know when I get to this pin, that's where I'm gonna stop. Back stitch, and then pull the entire quilt off of your machine. You wanna totally separate it.